Hello everyone, it is wonderful to be here today. Today I'll be talking about the architecture we inherited. There's a document in a quiet room in the United States National Archives in Washington, D.C. Its pages have probably yellowed, the ink on its signature has probably faded. Yet, it is a document that continues to guide how 193 nations interact with each other. This is the United Nations Charter, and it was signed in San Francisco in 1945. The same year this document was signed, the most powerful computer was this machine called ENIAC. It weighed 30 tons, it filled an entire room, and it could perform 5,000 calculations per second. Today, the smartphones in your pockets are 1,000,000 times more powerful. Now, that in itself is not a problem because often institutions outlive the context that they were built for. For example, the Bank of England, it is 300 years old, the Catholic Church, 2000, and the Royal Society, which was founded in the 1600s, still produces the most important scientific research on earth. But what if the world that an institution was built for fundamentally changes? That is the conversation that I would like to have with you today. We have inherited an international architecture from the 20th century in terms of institutions like the United Nations. But these institutions today live in the realities of the 21st century. How have the realities changed from the last century, and what does it mean for these institutions that we inherit? Let's have that conversation. Firstly, let's understand how the world has shifted. In my opinion, we've observed three major shifts. The first is that the actors have multiplied. The second is that the geography has changed shape. And the third is that the problems have changed pace. These three are separate, distinct threats, and we need to evaluate them each on its own merit. So, in terms of the first, that the actors have multiplied. In 1945, the UN was founded with 51 member states. Today, it has 193. But it's not just the fact that the number of actors have increased, it's also the nature of these actors. So, in 1945, we had a world that could be described as bipolar. United States of America and the Soviet Union were the two major powers. And yes, there were other powers, but they were less consequential. Now, here's an interesting data point. In 1945, the GDP of the top 5 economies was cumulatively $2.5 trillion. Today, the GDP of the top 10 economies individually is $2.5 trillion. China is the second largest economy. India is one of the fastest growing economies. And now we are seeing a world that scholars describe as multipolar. The gravitational pull of the international system now rests in multiple fields. But this is not the most interesting change according to me. According to me, the most interesting change is that a new type of actor has been added, and that is the private sector. So first, let us look at the financial layer. Three asset managers, which is BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Together, they control $30 trillion of assets under management. That is equal to almost the GDP of the United States and more than the GDP of every other nation in the world. They don't have a flag, they don't have a seat in the General Assembly, yet they continue to make decisions that impact our lives. Next, let's look at the corporate layer. The market capitalization of Apple is greater than the GDP of most countries. A single semiconductor manufacturer in Taiwan, which is TSMC, produces 90% of the world's most advanced chips. Now, these are chips that most economies can't function without. Again, Their names are not in the United Nations Charter, but they continue to impact our lives. Next, look at the philanthropic layer. In 2024, the spend of the Gates Foundation was greater than the budget of the World Health Organization. A private foundation now spends the most on public health in the world. And finally, the digital layer. A private firm, which is SpaceX through their Starlink network, has more satellites orbiting Earth than every government in the world. Again, when we talk about international relations, we are talking only about relations between two countries or between a wide range of countries. But relations between nations is just a subset of the international system today. The next significant change is that geography has changed shape. In 1945, the central organizing force was distance. News moved by cables, mail moved by air, and goods moved by ship. Delays were measured in hours. Today, capital can move across the Pacific in just a few milliseconds. A pandemic that starts in one country can move to every continent in just a few weeks. And a hospital in one country can be cyber attacked by 3 hackers in 3 different geographies, and often they don't even have a physical address. So what I'm trying to say is not that the distance has reduced. What I'm trying to say is that distance itself has multiple dimensions. We are living in multiple geographies at the same time. Now, the world in 1945 and the international order around it was built for one geography, and that was the political geography. And that is still relevant because that is how armies move, but we have more geographies that have taken shape. The first is the economic geography of supply chains that moves through ports. Or it could be the climate geography or carbon that does not see any borders. Or it could be the digital geography of subsea cables. Or it could be the demographic geography of migration. Each of these geographies have their own actors, they have their own logic, they have their own bottlenecks, and they have their own choke points. But cumulatively, what this idea condenses to is something very powerful and a little bit scary, which is to say that the disruption of a singular choke point in the Middle East can affect the price of bread in Bangalore. And that is how the geography has compounded. And the international order is still built for that one geography, which is the political geography. Next, I feel is an underappreciated, but according to me, the most interesting change that we've witnessed from the last century, and that is that the problems have changed speed. First, let's consider trade. So, the World Trade Organization in 2001 started what they called the Doha Round, where multiple nations came together to negotiate the rules of global trade for a more interconnected world. It's been 2.5 decades, yet they haven't been able to reach a comprehensive agreement. In these 2.5 decades, the supply chains of trade have reconfigured themselves several times. First, by automation, then by the pandemic, by geopolitical alignment, and finally, now by AI. So, while the trade system continued to evolve, the rules of the international order are still keeping up. Next, let's look at technology. ChatGPT was launched in November of 2022. Within 2 months, it had amassed 100 million users. That was the fastest consumer technology adoption in history. Yet, we are still seeing that the rules on AI governance in the international system are being drafted. Let's look at the pandemic. The novel coronavirus was first identified in December of 2019. By March of 2022, it had reached every continent except for Antarctica. So what we are seeing is that not just the nature of problems have changed, how quickly the problems move has changed. And the international order of the last century was designed for problems that move slowly, which is why they had deliberation, debate, dialogue built into their design. Now we have problems that can transverse continents in just a few seconds. So, where does this all really lead us? And probably this is where you expect me to say that the international order has failed and it is unable to deliver results. It's not been able to keep up with the realities of the 21st century, and it significantly needs to be replaced. But that's not what I'm going to say. I still feel that the international order holds relevance, but we're also already seeing a parallel structure and parallel layers emerge around it. So how are we seeing that? So firstly, let's look at G20. G20 was a grouping that started in 1999, and it was supposed to be a meeting between finance ministers. But in 2008, it was elevated to the level of heads of state because of the 2008 financial crisis, because the international system at that time was considered to be too narrow to manage the financial crisis. Similarly, we know of BRICS. Now, BRICS was a grouping that was proposed by a Goldman Sachs analyst in a thesis in 2001. And now, BRICS has become a significantly important coordinating bloc for South-to-South cooperation. And we're also seeing emergence of what scholars now like to call mini-laterals. These are basically like AUKUS or IMEC that are small groupings. They have a specific number of actors. They aim to solve a particular problem, and they have a certain timeline that is attached to it. So where this leaves us is that the UN still works, the General Assembly still meets, the Security Council still votes, IMF still convenes. But we are seeing these layers that are being built around this international system. Each of these layers are adept at solving a problem that probably was not envisioned by the architects of 1945. And they can solve that problem at the speed that it demands. So now I would like to move to my conclusion. And to conclude, I would like to leave you with two things. Firstly, I would like to leave you with an observation. And secondly, I would like to leave you with an image. The observation that I would like to leave you with is that I think that we are in the most significant transformation of the international system since 1945. Yes, the system that we inherited still exists, but we are seeing that these layers are being formed around it. Each of these layers has their own actors. They solve different problems, and they work on their own timelines. Some of these layers are formal, most are not. Some of these layers are visible, most are not. But to those of us in the room that truly care about how the world works, it is important that we understand how these layers work. What are they good at? What are they not good at? What are the challenges they are able to solve? What are the challenges they are not able to solve? And how should those challenges be bridged? And finally, the image that I want to leave you with is I want you to think of that same document that is lying in the United States National Archive in Washington, D.C. It's probably yellowed, it's probably faded, but it still exists. And it's still alive, it still matters. But it is not the only document in the room. So, the architecture that we inherited from 1945 is still relevant, but there are layers that have emerged around it. These layers are the ones that we are only beginning to read. So, it is very important that we learn the language of the new international order. Thank you.